It is 5 p.m. on the West Coast here, so I am going to share my screen and let's get this meetup kicked off here. And I'm going to try and get my teams back to where I like everything here. So welcome everyone to the Thursday, January 25th edition of the Vancouver Power BI and Modern Excel User Group Meetup. Super happy to have, I'm super happy to have the crew here today. We've actually got all of our presenters around today, which is fantastic because honestly, I've missed Joseph over the last few meetups that we've done here. So we're into our welcome and overview now. I just want to throw out a big quick thanks to the sponsors here. Skillwave Training, the company that Matt Allington and myself run, where we teach you how to be awesome with Excel and Power BI. If you haven't checked out our courses, you definitely should. Excel Guru is the parent company of Skillwave and also the distributor of my Monkey Tools add-in. If you are doing any work with Power Query or Power Pivot in Excel, you definitely owe it to yourself to check this thing out. As a matter of fact, even if you just want to have a better table naming experience from Control T, you should definitely check out the software. That's one of the free features in it, although there's many others as well. Our next meetups that we have coming up in a couple of weeks, we're going to be welcoming my friend Charles Williams. He is going to be coming to talk about how to speed up and debug Excel formulas. We're going to be looking at his different add-ins that he has to work with those. So that should be an interesting thing. I always learn some things about performance from Charles when we're talking about these things. And then in about a month from now, we've got Roland Sirmai, which I'm going to have to make sure I've got his name pronounced later correctly, who's going to be coming to talk to us about data flows. So those are both open for RSVP. Make sure you get your name in there so that you don't miss when they are going to be happening. Just one quick note on the Excel side, do note that we are going to be having an earlier start time than normal because Charles is based in the UK. We want to make sure that, we can keep him awake for the entire presentation. So quick note on Monkey Tools. For those of you who are following Monkey Tools, I just want to talk a little bit here about what we've actually released. I've been working a ton on Monkey Tools since November-ish, and there's a lot of stuff under the hood that I won't talk about, but a couple of key features. We've released some significant performance improvements from our from table experience when you're creating queries, and also when you're using Table Monkey to create multiple queries based on the data tables in your workbook. I've taken the time down from, where it used to take over a minute to create queries, it might now take, 10 seconds. So that's been a big performance increase there about the way that we actually generate our change type step. We've got better error handling for corporate environments. So if you are working in a Monkey Tools area where your IT is locking certain features down in your network and you were seeing errors, hopefully I've got all of those handled now. If not, just let me know. We've also put in a couple user requests. The left pane in BiblioMonkey is now resizable on demand. And we also have added the start time to the time sleuth progress. So when you're timing your queries, it actually logs the start time so you can see how long things have actually been running, as well as the timer of each individual query. And naturally, as always, we always release tons of bug fixes constantly as I'm working and developing on these things. So latest build is actually even newer than the one that's on the screen right here because I've put out another bug fix, but you should definitely check it out if you haven't already. If you are interested in leveling up either yourself or the members of your team to use things like pivot tables and data visualizations and Power Query because you're not comfortable in those areas in the Excel world, you should definitely check out my Excel Fundamentals Bootcamp. We've got another kickoff coming up on Valentine's Day. Love your data, right? So if you want to check that out, you can definitely do so. If you already know how pivot tables work and you're ready to go into the Excel data model and Power BI and really learn the full data journey for a self-service business and professional, this is my flagship program, is our self-service BI bootcamp. Again, the kickoff of our next semester is February 14th, although you can obviously start immediately as well. You can check it out at the link here. One thing to note about all these links are in the slide deck, which has already been posted on the Meetup site, so you can grab them and click on those to your heart's content. This meetup, along with every meetup that we ever do, is going to be recorded and is going to be posted on the Skillwave YouTube channel. Once it is recorded, give me until early next week to make this happen. At that point, we will post on the meetup site. You'll get an email notification to let you know that it's available so you can go back and watch it again and again if you like. In addition, you can check out our Monkey Shorts video. We've got a couple of short, less than 3 minutes of technical content in each one of these things. If you want to learn some really cool tips about granular pivot table layouts, you should definitely check that out, as well as some speed tips for setting your data types in Power Query. Last thing I want to say on this before I turn it over to Joseph is if you are interested in coming and speaking at our user group, we would love to have you. Just fill out the survey link here. We'll get in contact with you and get you on our show. And that's what I have for me. Hey, 5 minutes on the nose. I feel good about that. Joseph, it's your
Nice.
turn. Welcome back, man. I'm so glad to have you
Thank
back
you.
with us. And
Thank you.
yeah, all
Good
right.
to good to be back. Yeah, so I guess just before I kick off, as always, I'm usually have time crunch in some way doing the what's new in Power BI, and we've had, I think the shortest was hours. Usually it's a day or two, and sometimes it's a little bit longer. But Ken made me feel a little bit silly just 20 minutes ago saying, well, you have like months and months of what's new in Power BI because you haven't been presenting for the last couple of months. And it didn't even occur to me that the what's new in Power BI wasn't being presented at the user group when I wasn't here. But I have prepared
Yeah.
from
Sorry, I'm such a slacker,
December.
man. That was totally on me, but there you go. This is why I'm so happy to have you back, my friend.
There we go. Yeah, the segment is up and running again. So I'm going to review some of my favorite features from what's new in Power BI from the December release, because from the monthly update blog post, we see that there isn't a January feature summary due to the holidays, which is fine because there's really been a bunch of cool stuff from Q4 of last year, and there's a couple of great features in December that I'm just going to pick a couple of my favorites and go over a quick example. But I think one theme maybe from Q4 that from a few different months was just lots of updates to on-object interaction, on-object authoring. I know I presented on this a few different times, even earlier in 2023, and now it's an even more intuitive experience. And I'll probably cover some of those updates from other months implicitly as I go through the examples as well. But this on-object interaction update, which is a preview feature for December, is actually the first feature that I'm going to look at in my Power BI report, in my demo report. So it's sort of hard to, it's sort of a hard feature to demonstrate as part of a demo, because it's really just a personal preference of how you want to set up your report authoring experience. But what's great about this feature is that it gives us a lot more control over well, it's a new default setup, but also how we actually want to use the Power BI tool. So I'll jump back into Power BI to see what I mean. So previously with on-object authoring, if we see, we can click on this, really similar to like a Excel experience. We click on a visual, we have the little paintbrush icon in the top right, and this brings up some of the most common formatting options, visual options for this particular visual. So we see really common things, data labels, trend lines, titles. And if I go to more options, that brings up the format pane on the right-hand side of our report here. So let's just collapse that back down. And with on-object authoring, it became sort of the default option that this is how we'd format things to bring up the format pane, and that some of our new, to create new visuals, we were able to do that from the ribbon here. So from the home tab on the ribbon, we have this nice drop down of all of the native visuals that are available to us. But what we lost is the ability to pick visuals from our visualizations pane on the right-hand side, which has been the user experience for the last however many years, 8 years or so. And so now we have the option to really define exactly how we want to start building and formatting visuals. So if I go to options, and under global options, we have, where was it? Report settings, I believe here. And right at the bottom here, we have the pane switcher. So we have the option to always show the pane switcher here on the right-hand side. And when I'll toggle some of these options on and off as we go through. We have the option to always show the build a visual menu in the pane switcher. And then we also have the option to always open a new pane. So I'm just going to toggle these two bottom ones off and hit OK. And we see now that we don't have that build a visual pane on the left-hand side here. It disappears. We have data and we have format. And even then, just clicking between our data view and our format view, because I toggled off that always create a new pane, we only ever get one pane. And when we click into a new one, the old one, like data, disappears. And when we go to add additional panes, like we want our bookmarks pane or our selection pane, or our filters even, Filters adds a different one, but now we have 4 panes open, and they're all just stacked in the pane viewer, and we don't get that pane creep as we go, and our report canvas gets smaller and smaller and smaller as we go across. But I can also change this to over here, always show pane switcher. I can toggle back on from the ribbon as well, always open a new pane. So now if I close some of these, but open back up format and bookmarks and selection, now we can see each of these are open, but the old ones stay open as well. So I'm just gonna clap some of these things down. We don't need bookmarks, we don't need selection. And the new default behavior is we have, actually, let's close our filters pane as well. For our default behavior, now we have data format is here now in the pane selector as default, which is nice. And if I go back into our, if I go back into our options for our report settings, always show the build a visual menu on the pane switcher. That brings up this build a visual, and now we have the ability to create visuals from our visualization pane right here. We also have the ability to toggle on or off by default the suggested type visual. If we have that on, we get, based on the data that we add to this data pane, if we have some categorical data, we may get column charts. If we have some date data with some measures, we'll get some line charts. And we do get these recommendations automatically based on what data we put in, but I usually keep that off for now. So as we've seen, lots of different ways that we can tailor exactly how we want to author our reports and what we want that authoring experience to be like. If you don't want all the clutter in the pane and you don't need to see a lot of windows or get that pane creep, we can turn that off. Or if you want everything to show up, we can do that as well. So if we go back into the blog post for this month, again, all of those options that I went through and probably some more that I missed are included in this blog post here. But when let's scroll down to the next update, which is more styling options for columns and bar charts. And this update I'm really excited by. It's just one of those sort of little frustrations of building and formatting visuals in Power BI that now we just have a little bit more control over these types of visuals. And it lets us really just communicate our message or even just format our visuals in a way that we weren't able to before. So to look at some of these key enhancements, as we've outlined here, I'm going to be going over the transparency control, border customization, and some layout. So let's jump back into our Power BI report. And here we see we have our column chart down in the bottom left-hand corner. We're looking at our total balance measure by account product, and we have a legend, which is our segment name. So if I go into format this visual, I'm going to turn the total labels off for this example. But if I open this column section and I want these, for this example, the settings are going to apply for all series, so all 4 segments. But we have the option to apply these just to a single segment as well as we go through. The first one is for the first setting we have is the transparency. So just with the slider, I can slide this over and we see that we get a little bit more faint colors. Just like how we've had the ability to do transparency for like our background or fill, we can now do this with our actual columns in our column chart. So that's kind of cool. We also have the option for a border of the individual bar segments now, and you can see that we have these gray borders on our bars. And if we pair this with increasing the transparency, we see those borders. Right now, by default, everything's just like a gray color. But one of the options I think is pretty cool is that we can toggle on match column color. So now the borders for each of those segments in our column chart matches the color of the segment of that stacked column chart. And we can also set the transparency of our border as well. I found this works really well when we increase the transparency of the fill of the bar, but we keep a bolder border. It really makes it stand out more. And we have the option to make the border a little bit thinner, a little bit thicker, depending on how much we want it to stand out. And then under the layout options, we actually have probably one of my favorite formatting options, or maybe the name of one of my favorite name of a formatting option, which is series explosion. We're able to toggle on now. So I'm going to leave that off because we can see with space between series, this is how we can add space between those segments of our stacked column chart. And by default, we can get up to like a 5 points of space in between the segments, which does add quite a bit of space, and we can more clearly distinguish these segments. But if we want a lot more space, we can toggle on explosion, and now we have twice the amount of space we're able to do. And I just think that's so cool that we're not adding space, we're adding an explosion of space in between the segments of our column chart. So I don't know why that just made me happy that we now have the option to toggle on our office series explosion. I thought that was kind of cool. So we have not only space between the different segments of our column charts, but now it's really easy to format the space between the categories in our column chart as well. So this was always pretty easy to do with Excel visuals, and we can add padding, decrease padding, and now just with a slider or typing in the number, we can go to 0 and there's no space between our categories, everything's bunched together, or we can add it and we can have lots of space in between our columns. So all of these probably more common formatting options for column charts that were either difficult or just hidden or even not possible before. Now we have all of them, and it just makes the report authoring experience, particularly for the column charts, a lot more intuitive and easier as a report author. So I've really liked this visual. This has been one of my favorites for January. And if we go back into our blog, I'm just going to wrap up with my last favorite feature from the December, which is the customization of data labels. So we're getting lots of key enhancements with data labels. This is the first of many that are coming out in the coming months to do with data labels for lots of different visuals. I'm just going to stick with our column chart to demo this, but what this allows us to do is go from the default labeling experience that we've had. I don't think it's really changed that much since Power BI became its own tool, and now we have lots more control over exactly what those data labels look like. So back in our Power BI report, I'm just going to take out segment name from our legend, just so we have our 5 just solid bars in our column chart now. And this is where I'm going to go to data labels and add them on. So previously, when we add data labels, this is just the total amount for that column. We can see that, we have 2.7 billion, 2.2 billion, etc. But now we have some additional options in our data label. We can add a title on, which is just the title of the measure. And so this might seem, well, why do I need the name of the measure repeated across all the columns? Well, that can do stuff like it can free up. Maybe we don't need a title, or we can change the title to something that doesn't include the measure name, or probably more likely, we can actually add a DAX measure that can be the title, as well as control the color of that, of that title for the data label as well. So we now have conditionally controlled title colors and the actual titles for the column charts, which is great. And we also have the ability to add a secondary label, which is like a detailed label for the bar for these columns. So right now, the columns are our total balance measure. So we're seeing just the sum of total balance for each of these columns. But if we wanted to add some additional context, like maybe a count of clients for each of the categories on our x-axis, I can add that in our detail. And if I change the display units to none, and let's actually turn off, scroll back up, turn that title off for now. Now we can see that we have the total balance and the number of clients on each of those bars, which is really cool. And if I didn't want the number of clients, but I had a DAX measure, like our selected value of our account product, we can add that to our, we could add that onto our data point title here. So we could see we have 2.7 billion in loans, 2.2 billion in deposit, and we can even turn the x-axis off. So we have all of that context in the data label as opposed to elsewhere in our chart, which I think is really cool. But let's just add this secondary measure onto our label. And we have additional formatting options as well. We have we can have a background to our label. And one of the final small formatting options for these richer labels now is we have a layout. We can decide if we want it to be a single line, where we have sort of the two measures next to each other as our label, or we can see multi-line, which is what we had before, where we're stacking those measures on top of each other. So lots of conditional formatting we can do, lots of different sort of custom DAX measures we can build to really have a lot more control over the labels in our visuals in Power BI. So with that, I think that was 16 minutes. So just over a little bit over the 10 minutes I said. But yeah, considering it was just 3 features, definitely a lot of fun for December, and then looking forward to February. But yeah, thanks. That's my time, and happy to pass it over to Ken and to Mike. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Joseph. Great to have you back, and really appreciate it and miss seeing you do these. So yeah, excellent. And awesome. Mike, the floor is yours, my friend. You've got a presentation for us on report design frameworks, I believe.
Yes, I do. So
we're looking forward to seeing that.
It won't look like an Excel sheet when we're done. I apologize. It's just not how it's going to flow.
I have no problem with Excel sheets. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, I apologize for everyone else who's looking for really good Excel. There's not going to be a lot of tables in this output. So we'll show you what we've done here. So let's jump in here. I will present my screen and we'll get started on the presentation. So let me get my slides going. And assuming I get all the Teams items working correctly here, I'll share this and we should be good to go.
Looks good. I can see it. There you go.
All right, excellent. All right, so jumping right in, just hello, welcome everyone. I appreciate your time and allowing me to be able to present to you. This is going to be a kind of a whirlwind presentation. I'm going to give you a perspective, a lens on how my company goes through and works and builds out reports. So we're going to focus a lot on Power BI reports. A comment that I've heard a number of times in doing this presentation, or even talking with other Microsoft MVPs, experts, people who know how to engineer and move data around. A lot of people say, we love building reports and models. We are great at modeling the data. We can make all the measures all day long. But when it comes to styling, we struggle a little bit. How do we make the styled report work really well? So I'm going to give you the process that I use with our company, and you'll see some other hooks in here as you find other MVPs across the community. Ken being one of those other MVPs, these MVPs find better ways to solve a problem. So Ken has a great tool, Monkey Tools, which is incredible. And we'll show you the tool that I've built to help me build better looking reports. So it'll be all kind of encompassing here. My name is Mike. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I've been a Microsoft MVP since 2017, so for a number of years now. I'm an owner of a business, Carlo Solutions, where we do consulting work and helping organizations deal with their data problems. We focus primarily on the data platform. So a lot of data engineering and getting things into Power BI and data models. If you want to catch me, you can catch me on LinkedIn. And I'm also the creator of PowerBI.tips. And I also run a podcast, which Solar, thank you for calling that out. We do explicit measures. So if you are a fan of Power BI and you understand implicit and explicit measures, we run the Explicit Measures podcast every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 a.m. So if you don't get enough Power BI communication and or talk, you can go find us on all major social media platforms. We're on Spotify, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you can find us, we're out there. But if you want to join us live every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 a.m. on YouTube, you go to the PowerBI.tips YouTube channel, and that's where we'll be talking. All right, enough of the intro stuff. Let's jump into what this is going to do. So when I start thinking about a report process, and I find this works fairly well, and I use a program at what I'm presenting to you today, which is called Miro. And Miro is a nice way of allowing people to collaborate and work together and put ideas together on a page. I think of it as a digital whiteboard across everyone's computer. So when we are talking about the report design process, before we even touch data models and data and all the wonderful things you can do in Power BI Desktop, I really want people to step back and focus on what are we doing? What, at the end of the day, keeps me up at night? So when we're building our reports, we're initially taking a big swing at this. And some people may come to us with a report or an Excel sheet and say, here's an example of what I'd like to build. I try and put that on the shelf, at least initially. And I just want to say, what keeps you up at night? And we have people literally write Post-it notes and kind of like put them in virtual space. And we just have people create ideas. For example, I like to see my sales numbers comparing every month for the last 1 year. Okay, great. That's something we want to talk about. Something that keeps me up at night is, do we have enough sales leads in our pipeline to make sure we're going to make our deadlines or our corporate goals? What does the sales pipeline look like? Okay, great. Let's put that idea down. Just let's talk about the kinds of information that we need to do our jobs. I run a consulting business, so obviously I've done a lot of time with data and thinking through, how do I get my internal people to work on project work for our clients? Well, one of the big concerns for me is, do I have everyone working on the right projects? And if I've sold a job for 100 hours, how close are we to be coming to the end of that job? And do we have all of our tasks completed? These are general questions that I need to look at a report and walk away from and take action on. So one main goal here I'll put on this is, if your reports are not saving you money or making your money, I'm not sure why we should be reporting on them. So if you can't wrap those two, if you can't say yes to either one of those two reasons, I would really question why we're building things. And this whole ideation process is trying to tease out what are those main functional points that we care about when we're building reports. Moving on from that, once we have all these ideas, there are usually a bunch of them, and some of them are similar and some of them are not. So what we do next is we start trying to say, okay, everyone, we try to encourage you to write down your notes and write down your thoughts. And once we have all these, there's usually a common way of grouping things. And what you'll find, these feel like they group together in like a single page, right? These various topics are, everything we talk about in these Post-it notes are summary statistics. Total sales for the year, number of headcount of our employees for the year or the last 6 months, total number of customers, right? These are these big aggregated forms of data. And so you can kind of start thinking about, okay, well, all these kind of topics are grouped together. And then you'll have other more specific topics, right? It'll be focusing on a topic, what we're going to call maybe operations. I really care about, what's my delivery time? Are things being shipped on time? Are we filling our order status? You're thinking about those tactical pieces, but they're all kind of singling in on a particular topic. So that's when we would group those similar ideas or insights together into a topic. And so we just kind of do a general grouping of things. And you'll find sometimes two people ask for the same information, but they're asking for it in a slightly different way. This is a great way of kind of consolidating those ideas. Once we've grouped all the ideas, we're then able to kind of do what I'd like to call an action mapping. So for each of the topics that we care about, we want to say, okay, if we're talking about, I need to see my sales over time. Okay, let's map that insight or that information. What kind of graph would I want to show or present in front of people to show that information? So in that particular topic, we may say, okay, this is best represented by a column chart, or what you're asking for is, I need to know my profit ratio on all deals that we've had when I click on something. Great. That's a card, a KPI, right? So that's going to be a specific thing. So we're now trying to take these topics and kind of really distill them down into, these are the main items and how we group them together to build a single visual. So now we have this idea of talking through insights, right? So the insight is, I need to see sales over time. The insight is, I need to see total revenue. These are the numbers that we're trying to build. And then we're aligning that insight against a particular chart or visual that would make sense according to that insight. And now that we have all these great insights and potentially some mapping activities around what those visuals should be doing and what is the right visual to represent that data, we can then move over to try to stub out what a wireframe would look like. So wireframing potentially some objects on a page. Now this could be, I drew it here with little icons and things here as well, but you may have in Power BI, I can do great things. Like I can add buttons. I can change visuals based on a button. So I would literally sit down and either on paper or in a computer program, I'll just kind of sketch out what I think we need. And again, a lot of times I work with clients who don't know what they want. So the idea here is to bridge the gap between what can Power BI do and what their expectations for the report. So a lot of times what we're doing in these situations, we're talking about the wireframe, we're focusing on, okay, here's how I'm going to lay out the page. And we have a methodology, right? The top portion of your report is what we read first. That's how our eyes look. Our eyes look across the page. We kind of scan the report page in a Z format. So in doing that, we want our most important statistics, our most important data in the upper left-hand corner and across the top of the page. Those are usually your KPIs, the main points of information. And then as you work your way down the page, you can start adding more details, bar charts, line charts, and then potentially down the bottom, they may want tables. So this is a good way of just starting to get the customer's mind, or the person who's internal or external, getting your customer's mind to align with, here's a rough representation of what we can produce with your data. And Ron, I will agree with you. A lot of times people know what they think they know what they want, but they don't know exactly what they want until they've seen something. And then they say, well, I don't want that. That's not what I want. So a lot of what we're showing here is, trying to bring that journey and kind of helping them think through the steps to get down to a report that would be actionable. When I look at it, I know what to do. I can leave and come back and go do something else. So another approach that I take with a lot of these wireframes is sometimes you don't need to have it perfect. Sometimes good enough is just to get it out the door, send it over to them, and have them review it. So this is intended to be more of an iterative process. So once we have these ideas of visualizations and we can put them on the page, we can do common patterns. For example, in this example here, I have multiple tabs across this visual here. And what's actually happening is I'm using bookmarks to change the underlining visual every time you click a tab. So basically what we're able to do is we're able to show and hide different visuals as we click through these different buttons. So sometimes there's actually mechanical pieces inside Power BI Desktop that you want to show or present. And if you know you can build it, you can present that feature in front of the customer. So for example, I hit this all the time, we want to see all the data in a table. Well, I don't really know if a table is the best way to represent this data first. So let's start with a bar chart, and then I'll give you an option or a button to switch between a table and a bar chart. Or you can also work with customers to start having them build their own customizations of their own visuals. So Charlie asks a question. Are your stakeholders versed enough in visualization types to contribute ideas to the action and mapping of the wireframes? Yeah, this is a great question. I think a lot of people, when you use simple visuals, bar charts, line charts, those are typically in a good place for people to understand how they're used. I find there are other charts or other combinations of charts. So there's another chart position on another chart I like to use. It's called a bullet chart. When I use bullet charts, not many people have seen them or have spent time digesting them. So if I use a bullet chart as a graphical representation of a target and how close we're getting to the target or not, or are we in a red, yellow, green level towards a target, that's a place where people are a little bit more confused because they're not as familiar with the visual language. And Charlie, I'll also add here as well, depending on the culture of your company, some people will be more comfortable with like going through training, or the company's invested in something like IBCS, International Business Commercial Communication Standards, I think is what it stands for, IBCS standards. And the IBCS standards has a very specified way of how you draw different charts, how you show change over time. And it's actually some formal training to organizations to help them think in data, right? So if we think about what we're doing here is we are communicating to somebody else graphically through our report and through our visuals. If my recipient on the other side can't understand the visual I'm putting in place, then I need to simplify. So this is really kind of a data culture problem, or problem, maybe more of a challenge or, you know, an educational thing that organizations need to continually invest in their people. So as you build better visuals that tell you more things, people can read them and understand them. So a lot of times we don't want to just build just a report and leave it and walk away. We want to teach people how to use the report as well. I hope I answered your question, Charlie. I think you're right. Some people are capable, some people are not, but it really depends on the data culture of who you're working with and do they understand more complex visuals or not. Yeah, thank you for jumping in there with the IBCS standards. So that is what I was referring to. The IBCS standards is that location right there, and a great company. You can get dedicated training on that. There's books on it as well. Highly recommend it, and it's a good way of, you know, if you're a small team, I'd recommend pushing your people through IBCS standards, thinking through the way with data. That's a great way to communicate, and it's kind of internationally known. You can use this anywhere, and other people will have some familiarity with it. Great point. Great questions. Some other tricks and things here as well. When you're building Power BI reports, you can easily group various objects together by using Control-G combination. So if you have multiple visuals together on a report page, and I will pull up a report here real quick here, and I'll show you how to do that. Hopefully my Power BI is loading. All right, so I have a report page here. I'm going to open up a quick report here. So that way I have some visuals and some data already supported here. So let me, oops, I got another window showing up. Let's get rid of that one. Let's use this one. Okay, so here I have a visual here. And if I want to, oh, now it decides it wants to load. Okay, great. If I want to copy this visual, Control-C, Control-V, I can get another visual here. I can change the visual type if I want to something else. And so if I want to group these two items together as if they were one unit, I can click and drag both items, and then on my keyboard, I can use Control-G, which will then group them together, and now they act as a single unit. So a lot of times, if you have a lot of buttons or cards or other things on your report pages, it's very useful to have multiple cards on the page, and you can then align them. So I'm going to quickly throw some other objects on the page here. And I really don't care what they're doing, so I'll use another command here. I'll go over to Format, Align the top, Align Distribute horizontally, Control-G, and now they act as a single unit. So now when I move those groups around, those cards are all aligned together as a single object. So now I can start grouping multiple things together. And if I have multiple buttons and other things as well, that's a great tip or trick here around building reports, using that those commands inside there. Now, if you have a grouped set of objects and you want to ungroup them, you can hold Control-Shift-G, and that will ungroup them. So now they are separate objects again, and they are no longer grouped. Excellent. Nice little demo there. All right. With that, you've kind of gone through, you're now thinking through some of the wireframes. You're probably taking some of your wireframes and building Power BI templates from them. So you're building common elements and storing those elements inside your report. The next part I like to focus on here, again, this is now moving more towards the stylizing side of things. So do we have a good color palette? Where can I go find good color palettes? How can I adjust the visualization properties so that all the visuals in the report are consistent and have the same set of properties? Here's where I'm going to introduce some new tooling for you. So I'll speak to this in a little bit, but we want to really focus on what kind of themes or theming am I using on my reports. I've got a great tool out there that makes this easy, very fluid, and hopefully it helps you make it easier for you to build your own theme files. We also want to go find really cool color palettes. So there's actually a number of great sites out there that help you pick and randomly build color palettes off of things. You can go to Adobe and even grab an image and have an image uploaded, and from that image, it will pick colors that you'd like to use. For visual properties, there's a ton of visual properties. So it's very helpful to stylize common things like our titles on our reports, or the titles for each visual, should be centered and of a certain size. So it may be 25 pixels, and that will be the size of our titles, but we want them all centered. Instead of clicking on every single visual, we like to have standards across that, and that's where the theming comes in. The theme file allows us to build a consistent style across the entire report. Lastly here, I'm going to talk a little bit about what these things, what I'd like to call, are a scrim. So Technically, they're just called a background, but I wanted a little bit of a different name here. And so you can think of a scrim as the formal definition of a scrim is if you're watching a theater and there's actors on the stage and you want to change the background, the scenery that people are acting in front of, the large object in the back of the theater will come down, and it's called a scrim. It's just a big sheet of fabric or painting behind the background. So this fabric will come down from the back, and that will set the scene for, okay, well, now we're outdoors. It'll have trees and homes and things on that as well. Or maybe you're in a house, and then the scrim will come down in the back, and that'll actually put the background behind where the actors are performing. So in the same way, we want to think about that with Power BI. We have a background, the page background, that becomes our scrim, the image on which we put visuals on top of. You can do a ton of work around the background images on your reports. And this is amazingly powerful because this keeps your performance very high on the report. It reduces the number of objects in your report, but it really polishes what you can produce. It makes things look really snappy. So this is a great way of really making your reports pop and just make them really grab someone's eye. Now, I'm going to say this with caution here. We don't want to build reports that are only flashy. We want to build reports that add value. So you can hide some rough edges in your data modeling and how good the data looks and how clean it is. You can hide some of those things, and people will still really like your report because it's appealing to look at. I am a big proponent of making solid and quality data. So don't cut corners and make a very visually stunning report and have junk data inside it. So we all know we have good data. This is just helping you improve the visual side of things as well. Okay, that being said, let's move on to the next one. Now what you can do is you can join all these things together. We can add these scrims, these background images, to your report. You can put them with your theme files. So your theme file stylizes the different visuals themselves. And then you can do all kinds of really interesting things inside the scrims that will help you add transparencies to backgrounds. It can make it a bit more dynamic. And so the combination of what you play around here is you're actually playing with multiple layers inside the report. The visuals are at the top. You have the scrim behind that. And then you have the theme file, which is kind of in the background, but also adjusts all the visuals themselves. So this is really what we're going to demo today. We're going to focus a lot more on the stylizing side. Where can you find these templates? How can you work with them? I'm going to demo some of our tool on what we use internally to be able to build reports in a template fashion so you could use them with all your insights and put your visuals on top of it. Oh, great idea. Recommendations on resolution and or size of your scrim file. So a scrim file, or the background image, I recommend using SVG items. So you can use a PNG or a JPEG, but I find that PNGs or JPEGs, one, are a little bit larger in size, but also the JPEGs or background images, if they are not high enough resolution, they get grainy. It almost looks like the background image is fuzzy, and it doesn't really look very crisp and clean. So I'm a big proponent of using an SVG item, and SVGs can be built in other tools like Figma, Canva. I think there's a couple other tools that you can use. If you don't have those tools or not comfortable with them, you can use PowerPoint, and inside PowerPoint, you can also design your background there as well. But in those cases, you'll actually get a image out, and what you're looking for is you're looking to match the pixel size of the report canvas. So I believe the standard report canvas is 1280 by 720. I believe that's your normal canvas size for Power BI reports. So using a pixel dimension size that matches that really helps get those images on the page in a clean, elegant way. If you have any challenges with the images being fuzzy or blurry, you can double the pixel sizes. So you can, instead of doing 1280 by 720, double those numbers and that would be 240, 256, something like that, and then 1440. If you double the dimensions of your image, what you can do in desktop is you can scale that image down to the right size and it gets more crisp. The risk of that is you're now using a larger image to render inside your report. So you're playing a fine balance between high resolution images and crisp images versus getting it just large enough to make it look good on your report. But you'll see today that we're going to use SVGs, and they're very light, very small, and they scale really well with the background of the pages as well. Great question, Ken. All right. Next, moving over here, we're going to do a demo. So let's go build our own report. We're going to work on just the stylizing side. I'm not going to focus as much on building the insights and the visuals, but rather we're going to focus on getting the report page sized and getting all the images together. All right. So let's go into Power BI Desktop, and let's create a new page here. And I have a couple images that I've already loaded up. So I'm going to show you first. I will show you how to do this manually first inside Desktop, just so you can see how to do it. And then once we're done with that, we're going to go over to my tool, and I'll show you how much faster we can do this inside our theme generator. All right. So jumping into our report here, I'll put my report here on this side of the page. On the other hand here, I have a folder. And inside this folder, let me pull that over here to my screen. Let's get rid of some options here. I don't need the navigation pane. Here we go. Here's my images. So these are the images that we're working from. You may have seen this on the internet. Ken, do you recognize, Ken, where we have seen this before? I don't know if this is a call out to you, Ken. Have you seen this image before?
I feel like I have, Mike, but I can't put my finger on where.
All right, let me see if I can go find it. Let's see if Microsoft. Where's the Power Query website? Isn't there like a Microsoft Power? Okay, here, check this out. Here's the Power Query website, and the reason you may have seen this image before is because when you think about Power Query, Microsoft has used my background image in their official promotional material back when we had dark mode on Power BI Desktop. This is a long time ago, but Microsoft themselves uses this in promotional material. So you may have rolled across this when going to Power Query Online.
Yeah, I don't tend to go to the site very often, but that's why I would say I feel like I've seen it. But yeah, there you go.
It's around.
Cool. That's funny.
Yeah. It's funny how it kind of got picked up and used by Microsoft. So that's kind of fun. So this is a distinct background item that I've used here. And all of these, you'll notice they are all just SVGs. And just to show you how large they are in size, if I do the details here, each one of these images are very small. We're talking 5 kilobytes in size. If you were going to make the equivalent image, it would actually be much larger if it was a JPEG or PNG. So these are one of the smaller objects you can get together to be able to build this inside Power BI Desktop. Again, we're thinking lightweight, easy to load, and getting it into your browser window when the report renders in PowerBI.com. All right, so next we're going to have to go get to the settings of the report canvas. Because I'm in the new way to edit our report, I have to right-click, and then I can format the canvas. On the formatting canvas, we'll be focusing on the canvas background, and we'll focus on the image area right here, where we'll add our image. I'll click on Add an Image. We'll go into our scrims, and then I will grab the main or the home page, basically. This will add the scrim here. And you'll notice right away, when I do it, it immediately, where is it? Why does it not show? That's because the transparency of the background images is by default set to 100%. I don't know why on earth that is doing that, but you have to manually change this down to 0 for you to see the background image. You'll also notice here, it's going to set it to normal. You can also set it to fit or fill. Either one of those options will work, but you'll notice if you use fill, the very bottom image, if there's any kind of difference between how Power BI wants to render those images, even though the image may be exactly sized to the right size of the page, there's usually a little gap at the end because the way Microsoft renders things isn't 100% exact. So I typically will use the setting called fit. And what it does is it stretches the image in horizontal and vertical directions so that it always will match exactly what's on your report page. And with that, I'm done. So I've got my scrim already backed on there. Some features here that you can add, like this is really cool. You've got like background, drop shadows. You can add nice beveled edges if you want. You'll also notice here the upper left-hand corner of this background image has a very light shade up here. But when I zoom into the bottom right-hand corner, I can have that same background image produce a darker color. There's a very subtle effect that's happening here is the light stuff is on the upper left, the dark is on the bottom right. This naturally will draw your eye to the upper left-hand corner where the important information should be. And then as you work your way across the page, the darker color will draw your eye down to the bottom right-hand corner. So just a very visual design aspect that you can use or leverage to help your report users point their eye to the more brighter, reflective parts of your report. All right, so that's our first page. With that, now I don't have to worry as much about what happens in my visuals. So I can be a little bit sloppy where I put my visuals, but I can just drop in a table here, and I don't have to get it exactly on the edges, but I just have to get it close. And as soon as I'm done, I can then start going to add my factual table. So I'll add some facts in here. We'll slap in some dimensions so we get some data. And there we go. We've got a nice table being built out here. And then you can go ahead and stylize or adjust all your table properties so that it fits on top of this as well. So that's building out visuals here. If you don't like that, you can go switch over to other chart types, and we can start building other chart types as well on the page. Now, you'll notice here, the way I've built this background image, I can leave the background of this visual totally white, or what I prefer is I actually like adjusting the visual background itself. So I go into the size and style, and I'm going to go here to the section called background, and you can now start dialing up the transparency of the background. And now what you're doing is you're allowing even though you're still giving it a border, it's not stark white anymore, you're taking a shade from the background object. And that's very helpful for you to have like a little bit of a glossy reflectant of the visual still gets a nice border, but now you can see the color bleeding through, and now the color kind of matches the background. So this is a technique we use a lot with transparencies or transparent backgrounds that will help you change the style or look and feel of the report by just slightly adjusting that transparency. Also here, in particularly for this report, you can also build in a bunch of cards as well. So if you want a number of KPI cards, we can go over here to the right-hand side and we can slap in a bunch of KPI cards. Let's put a couple, total profit. And then here as well, you'll notice inside this report, we've got a whole bunch of white background there. So in this one example, I will actually remove all background. And then for the text font, there's going to be a title or a call out value here. We're going to adjust the category label to be just white. So we want that to pop on top of the report, and then maybe we want to bold it, something a little bit bigger there. You can do the same thing for the font as well. Turn that to white and use that to sit on the page. Maybe the size is too large. So you notice here, I'm adjusting the features here on this one visual. So another technique I'm going to give you here that makes this a lot more efficient is, okay, I've done those style adjustments to a single visual, but what happens when I want to add another visual? If I add another card, you'll notice right away, as I add another category here, let's go sum of sales now. None of those styled properties are adjusted, and they're not matching that new card. So for example, we may want to adjust this and stylize this in a way that, okay, maybe we do want the font size to be smaller already. So let's talk about introducing some properties for the theming. So we go over to the format ribbon, view ribbon. View ribbon's at the top here, and we're going to click this down arrow here next to all these different themes. So for one, Microsoft has a whole bunch of built-in color themes, and as I adjust things, you'll notice all the properties of the visuals, the font, the color palettes, all those are adjusting, and these are built-in options, but we have the ability to customize these however we want. You'll also notice here on the visual that I adjusted, this top one, the colors remain the same, but on this other visual, you'll see that the background color was removed, but the font size and colors have not been changed. That's because this is all being driven by what's inside the theme file. So the theming can be changed, and it can change any property on any visual. It's very powerful. If we click the down arrow here, and then there's a number of options here at the bottom for browse for themes, go to the theme gallery, customize this current theme, or save the current theme. I'm going to go here to customizing the current theme. This is probably the easiest initial starting point for customizing your themes. When I click on this, Microsoft has made a dialog box where you can adjust some general properties across your theme. So now what I can do in here is I can go into the text area. In my cards and KPIs, you'll notice here it tells me what font family that belongs to and what font size and what is the font color. So for KPIs and cards, I may want to adjust this. Font color should be white. So I'll make it all white. And maybe the font size is too large. I want it to be 36 instead of 45 point. When I click apply, it will then adjust those items on those cards. And you'll notice here, this card was adjusted back, so the background of this card is still applied. So that's why you see that this is going to be still white. I'll have to go back to this visual, and then I'll have to turn the background off, and then you'll see that in fact, the font is now white, and it's adjusted so it's a bit smaller. Okay, so this is basic theming. You know, going in here and be able to modify options in the theming area. So if I customize the theme again, you can change the theme colors. You can there's other visual level elements. First level elements might be like a title on a report. Second level elements might be a header, something else that's inside the report. So these are different elements inside the report. I'll admit Microsoft does not do a great job documenting where these live. You have to kind of read up a lot about them to know which level elements that you adjust. The things that I adjust most commonly are I adjust the general properties. The titles are almost always adjusted. I almost always adjust these to some sort of form. I don't really like stark dark black for my titles. I'll typically add a little bit of a gray tone to the titles on each of the pages. In the visuals area, I usually, again, in this example here, I'll probably turn my background off and not have any transparency or put the transparency to 0% on the backgrounds. I don't really adjust the borders too much. Page features, I do a little bit of work here, but not a ton. I really don't adjust that too much. And then I really don't do a ton of work here on the filter pane, but these are other options you can stylize. Okay. Now, I would be remiss if I said this is the only way you could stylize things. We did a good bit of work here, but what if we want to do this faster? How can we get even more of these? And where can I find a bunch of examples of potentially good-looking reports where I could just download them and start from a template? How would that work? Okay, so now let's transition over from there. We will now move over to our demo here. I'd like to introduce you to my theme generator, which is a tool that we use. It is free to use, but if you want some more of the enhanced features, it does come with a subscription, so we can save your work and let you come back to it. So there's a couple other advanced feature options here, but I'm going to show you some more stylizing options that can happen inside reports. But I'll start here with this tool. So when you load the tool, you'll initially notice here, you're starting on a page where there is a bunch of pre-built reports, and you can click on any one of these reports. And what it will do is it will show you the example of the report. It will show you where potential icons or visuals will live on the report page. So it's actually showing you pre-laid out for visuals. It shows you all the scrims that are used inside this report. So these are the different images that are used inside this report to maybe give you ideas. Or if you want to use this as a starting point, you can. And then if you want to see the colors inside this theme file, you can click on the theme preview. And what this does is this real-time renders a visual for you. And you'll be able to see the color palette and how the different colors of that theme would look inside your report. So if you want to modify or adjust these, you can, if you're a subscriber, you can copy and edit them, but everyone can download them for free because we won't charge you for that. You can just go ahead and download the things from the website. If I click copy and edit, it will take you into our UI for helping you build out more elaborate wireframes. So in here, and this is something, these are a lot of features that I think Power BI Desktop should do better, is let's just say the pages are out of order and I want to rearrange my pages. Well, it's as easy as dragging the pages around to rearrange the pages in the right order on how you want it to look. So now you can rearrange your pages exactly as you need them. If you don't like one of these pages, you can hide them by clicking the eyeball on the page. So I'm clicking the eyeball right here, and it will keep the page when you download this report. However, it will hide it from your view so you don't get to see it. So I'm going to hide a couple pages here so you can see they're gone. And if I want to edit the visuals or the kinds of visuals on one of the pages, if I click on the report page and double click into it, it now brings up the editor where I can actually edit. There's no data. There's no data applied here. We're only focusing on individual objects on the page and where they belong. So this is a scatter plot here, and you can then literally just drag and drop where you think it should live on that scrim in the background. If you don't like this bar chart, you can go change it to something else, like a pie chart, which I would not recommend. Let's put 2 pie charts to make Ken have a conniption here on how much he loves pie charts. I don't know how much Ken loves or hates pie charts, but I'll add one just in case. So we'll put 2 pie charts up here, and you'll also notice right away there's already some red lines that are appearing, just like you would see in Power BI Desktop, helping you align your objects together. So we already have built that into the tool. And one thing that we give you above and beyond Desktop is we let you have other settings. So if you want to snap to the edges or centers, you can turn those features on or off whenever you want. Also, for anyone who's actually gone in depth with Power BI files, we have a feature called Enable Whole Numbers. So when you build visuals on a report page, Microsoft kind of just puts them wherever you think they need to be, but this allows you to have pixel perfect precision as to where this visual lives on the report page. So I have over here the width and the height of the visual and the exact X and Y positions to the pixel of where it would live on the report canvas. So I can adjust these to be exactly the same. So let's say I want a width of 300 and a height of 255. I can then manually adjust both of those to be exactly the same width and the same heights. So now I can make my images, or the 2 objects here, exactly the same dimensions, which is really helpful. I can also position them exactly where I want in the X and Y direction as well. So you'll note here, both of the Y positions start at 113, which means they're exactly at the same level together. A lot more precision you can apply when you're building reports this way. Other properties you'll see here is if I want to adjust the page size, I can do so here. If I want to increase the page width and height, I can do that as well. I have some options here to link those 2 values. So if I adjust the width, the height will automatically adjust. So you could stretch your page longer if we wanted. So let's just say, for example, this page, we want to be 1440. And by doing that, my page size automatically grows, and now all my visuals are scaled very small because they're still in those same dimensional areas. So I can scale them out. So the visuals are now much larger on my report canvas. So you'll note here, all of those other options were carried along, and I can just rearrange my visuals and place them where I want. All right, enough of that. Those are the cool features that we have there. Let me get rid of some stuff here. I'll get rid of these little guys up here, trash these other icons up here. I'm trying to think of other features here. There's a couple other features in here that are neat. You can also move visuals around using your command keys. So if you use your arrow keys, and I'll have to zoom in here a little bit. Oops, not like that. Let me go back to a different page that's a little bit bigger so you'll be able to see it a bit better here. If I grab this visual here, if I use my arrow keys on my keyboard, it will nudge the visual over by 1 pixel at a time. So it's actually incrementing the pixels in the X or Y direction 1 pixel at a time. But if I hold the shift key, I can nudge them 10 pixels at a time. So I can kind of start nudging my visuals much faster. Same way you would do that in desktop. So desktop does the very similar behavior where I can nudge by 10 or 1 pixel at a time. I think that's it. Those are all the main features there. All right, with that, we've done a lot of work. Our visual has some backgrounds. We made some images here potentially, and we want to go use this now in our Power BI desktop. Cool part about this is this tool will now build your entire Power BI file. Actually, before I do that, let me do one more thing here. We may want to adjust our color palette. So we have a color palette picker. This is going to help you define the color palettes that you have in your report. You can use a color wheel, and you can just kind of randomly grab some colors here off of a color wheel if you want. So we have a full, more elaborate color picker here for you, so you can build additional colors if needed, and you can kind of shape them how you want. We have other different color pickers, like you want a chromatic style. We can help you build a single gradient of colors, whatever you want. If you want complementary colors, you can then do 2 colors that complement. And you can, again, adjust these little bubbles here that will change the color or the texture of those colors, make them a bit brighter or lighter. And then as you adjust them around your wheel, you can see if they complement or not. And then you can do triads where you build 3 colors of similar pattern. And then again, you can adjust all the colors by dragging the wheels around. So it's a bit more of an interactive way of depicting your colors across your report. You can also build gradient colors. So it'll allow you to pick a lower end color and a high end color, and it will then allow you to build gradients. You can add middle colors if you want, and then you can just randomize it. And so you can kind of just pick through and see what colors you like. I don't really like those colors. Let's get rid of this one too. I'm going to okay, this looks appealing to me. So I'll hit add all. And what this does is this builds out the color palette for you automatically. Once you have the color palette built, you can click on the eyeball. And that didn't look like it did. It was supposed to do it. It crashed there for a second. So my bad. I'll fill out a bug for that one. So it took away my report there. Back to the page. It's probably going to take away my changes because I didn't save it yet. Yes. I'll just skip over here to the palette pieces as well. Let's go back to our gradients. I'll click a couple random items here. We'll grab something and I'll add all of these. If I want to, I can rearrange the color palette however I need to. So I can then pick each color and move them around. If I don't like them, I can delete them. We can nix them off of here. I can click some more random colors. And then I can continue to kind of shape my color palette in the order in which the colors will appear inside Power BI Desktop. And then I can get rid of colors that I don't want or are not needed. Next, you can move over to other colors. You can stylize anything you want inside the entire report. So you can stylize the status colors. So this is the good, bad, and neutral colors that's showing up on the line chart here. So you could make good colors a blue, and you could make bad your red, and you could have your neutral colors be more of a gray. So this will allow you to, again, pick the colors. And in real time, this will show you how the colors are being displayed or portrayed inside your report. Also, you can go into text properties. These are all the properties that are living for individual text items. So the title, if you want to change the title or change things there, these are all the different major labels that are inside the report. Next, you can also add your own icons. So if there are icons you want to use anywhere in your report, these are icons that come with the theme file. Again, you can't edit these inside Power BI Desktop, but you can add them here. Excuse me. So let's just say I wanted to look for a house, and I have a little house icon or a little garage. So I can add this warehouse icon, and then I have the ability of stylizing the color to whatever I want. And then when I save this, I can say blue warehouse. This will be saved in my theme file, and then I can reference this icon and use it on a table or a matrix. What else do we have here? I think I have a heart in here. There's a heart icon, so maybe I want a heart, and maybe I want a different color for that one. So maybe I want to make a red heart. So I can add a red color here, and then I can add a red, and maybe I want another one that's a bit green with not so much darkness. Add that. So I have a red and a green heart. If I go back over to my icons, I can then pick out a heart now. And then I can add in there my red heart. And those, again, will be available to me inside the theme file when I make tables and can stylize those things accordingly. All right, we'll save those. That'll be part of my theme file. And then finally, the coolest part of all this is you can go through and you can build customized visuals. So what it will do here is this is a Power BI visual rendered for you, and you can add a legend to it. And what that does is it renders the visual, but now I can then adjust all the properties of this visual. So for example, if I want to adjust the header or I want to move the legend to somewhere else inside the report, I can then just go into the legend. I can turn it on, show it by default, and I may want to position it someplace else. So the position may be bottom center. And what it'll do is it will automatically move the legend for me in the visual so I can see what that property is doing and how it's adjusting it. On the title of this visual, I may want to adjust the title. So I'll go here to the title, and maybe the title I want to center it or do something else. I can align it to the center. I can turn it on with bold, and maybe I want to make sure I show it always, and we want to change the text size. So I'll make it up to 22, and that'll be my new title. So my title will be that format on this visual. Once I've got that completed, I can copy these properties. So I have a format painter over here on the left-hand side. So I can click on the format painter, which will copy these formulas or these properties and will allow me to put them on any other visual that I want. So if I paste those properties onto a different visual, I've now automatically pre-adjusted the title and the legend on this other chart. So if I turn on the legend again, you'll see that the legend again will appear at the bottom of the chart and the title is the same place. So again, mass editing of all the properties of your theme file. All right. I think those are all the main pieces here for the tool. I'm going to quickly go back to the gallery and go grab one of our sample reports here. I'm going to go copy and edit again. All right, we'll assume that we've made changes to the theme file and done all the things that we want. Now we're done. We're ready to drop the report down to our desktop. And then you can then use this preview button here, because this is kind of a preview feature from Microsoft, where we can download the PBIP format. Click on preview. It will download the file directly to your computer. I can extract it here, just a zip file. So I'll extract the actual PBIP format. And this is your Power BI report in the new Power BI project PBIP formatted folder structure. So these are just a single, a new format type that Microsoft is using for Power BI files, which will make it easier for you to manage and store these things in GitHub or Git or enterprise grade solutions. But now you can just double click on the report. And now what will happen is it'll immediately bring up Power BI Desktop, and it will load all the objects into Power BI Desktop. So give it a second here. It will finish loading Power BI Desktop, and it will build out our report, all of our pages, any changes that we make to each of the pages. It will have visuals pre-built here. Now, there, again, no data, but this is a frame, a wireframe that we can now use to go connect the data. So we'll finish that now. We'll go get some data from PowerBI.com. Let's go to our semantic models on PowerBI.com. Let's go look for our model called star schema. And I'll click my star schema. And there we go. I've got data on the right-hand side, and now I can just start building things. So now I can just go grab my individual factual components here. And I'm not sure why those are coming up blank right now, but some filter on the page. If I bring my dim dates or dim products, should be able to produce some value here. Oh, maybe I picked a different data model. Let's go back and switch it. Let's pick a different one. Maybe I picked the wrong one here. Cancel. I want to let me pick a new one here. I'll just start over again because I don't know what I did wrong there. I'm pretty sure I picked the wrong data model. If I had a working cube in my service, it would be just fine. Until then, it's just not going to work. So I see a couple of questions here while this is loading. Oh, yeah, this is all part of the presentation stuff. Can we make your visual be responsive with the canvas and change size? So meaning, like, if you stretch the canvas size out, will the visuals automatically scale with it? That's not a setting that we have in our tool today, but that's a great option. We could definitely add that in the future. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to scale the visuals with the page size as well. Yes, Ken, great question. In the settings here, and also you can, side note, super tricky thing here. On the right-hand side here, there's a little gear on the right-hand side. You can get to your settings and your Power BI Desktop. You can turn those on by clicking the gear. You can go into your preview features, and then there is right here, Power BI PBIP save option. That PBIP save option is the ability for you to use the PBIP format and use those files. So what I'm showing you here in this is all using this new format. Try and get data correctly here. Let's try and do that again from the Power BI service. Semantic data models. I want star schema star. I'm pretty sure star model was the one I wanted. Demo for Learning Fabric. Oh, maybe that's because in my Learning Fabric one. Let's try this. Testing for blogs. That should be in a premium workspace that doesn't have anything turned off. All right, we'll put sum of cost of goods here. There we go. Now we're getting data. So this is a model that I've already created. The idea here being I can just drag and drop data fields onto my report. I'm not worrying about where the position of anything is, but I can just go in here and build out what I want to build now. So I can take my dimension for dates, add it to my table here, and well, this is a scatter chart, so it's going to be a bit weird with all the different elements there. I don't think I can actually add other items on there. Yeah, it's not going to be happy with this because I don't have a lot of other calculations for this one. But my bar chart, I can add products. and then sum of products, and then it'll build out my visuals for me. So I can start clicking through things I want. And there we go. The report is now built, and all I do is pick out the data columns and put them on my report, and boom, got a report now. The only last thing I can show you now is what if you wanted to create one of these from scratch? So let's start over again. We'll start from scratch here. Let's imagine you're going to start from scratch and you don't have anything else downloaded. So what you can do is you can actually add your own images. So I'm going to grab all my SVG items here. I'm going to click all of them here. I'm going to hit open. You'll notice it will stack up all the images here. And the neat part is the size of the image you supply, we will auto detect that for you. And if you click on the little autofill pages button here, for each visual you have, we will auto populate a single page for each visual. So all the work I did previously where I was doing all the add a scrim, change the color, all done. 2 clicks of a button, we have all the pages created. Another thing that we've added recently is, okay, well, now that we have all the pages and we have boxes, can we auto detect where things are? Yes, we can. So we have this new feature we've added in the last month or so where we can use AI to detect where the different shapes are on the page. And we try to, with our best guess, put visual objects on those pages. So if I click on Visuals AI, it'll go through each page and it will try to determine, based on the objects on the page, where would it think it wants you to put visuals on those pages. I could also go back to the gallery or get other items here. We can also go grab things from the community as well. So if there are other objects or other things on the community that would be interesting to us. So I'm going to go down here to this one right here, this dark background. These are the different scrims we have on this one. So I'll copy to my scrims, and then I'm going to get rid of these other objects like this. Now we have, I don't know, 10 more pages. I'm going to then add these all as new pages into my report. Boom. Now I get another 10 pages or so. And then again, I'll run my Visuals AI. And what it will do is it will go back through and now it will add all the visuals to all pages based on the boundaries. And it makes its educated guess to, okay, based on what you've shown us, we're going to guess which size visuals. It's going to be a table, it's going to be a chart or a visual. And it will go through and actually create all the visuals on each page and align them for you. So if you imagine how much time this could save you, now with a couple clicks of a button and a little bit of AI, I've now got 10 pages built, all these objects ready to go. We can go through and now focus our property attention on how do we want to stylize the visuals. So we'll go here, we'll go to the background colors. I'll just select a color of none, just turn them off and just do not show them. And then we'll do another thing real quick here on all visuals. We'll go to the titles. So this is alphabetical order. Let's go down to title, QRST. There we go, title. And then on the title for each visual, we'll align them to the center. We'll turn them on and we'll change the text size to something larger. And just to confirm that this is working correctly, I'm going to go over to the stacked bar chart and then I'm just going to confirm that the title in fact is larger and centered. Yes, it is. That means the visual property worked. With that, I can then download the Power BI project file. So I will, well, actually, I probably should name it first. Test 1. Save it real quick. All right, then I'll download it. So the same thing we did before. I can then just right click, extract all. And boom, we now have a report and load that up. Oh, I see another question. Can we design mobile layouts using scrims? Yes, you can. And the experience inside Power BI Desktop designing a mobile experience, I don't really love it. I actually enjoy using a slightly different format of the page size. But again, I'll show you how to do that in a second. You can easily adjust the page size as well. So you can make a phone size screen and change the pixel size so it's a scrolling longer page as well. How did you make your tool change the visual pane's default setting in the Power BI file? The PBI visual pane changes so fast. I'm not sure if I understand the question, Solar. How did you make your tool change the PBI visual pane?
Yeah, hi Michael. So I just see you. So in each visual, you in your tool you have that kind of for the Power BI views, in each view, you can change that kind of metadata, the default setting
Yes,
of each
yes.
of the view. How you
Yep.
make that happen? Because I'm thinking that kind of view panels, you have different kind of the updates every month. How did
Yes.
you keep your tool have
Oh.
this kind of update to their stuff?
Gotcha.
You know?
Yes, understand. So every month there is a new list of properties for all the visuals. So this page here for properties and all these properties that exist here for this particular visual, this changes monthly. We go out to the Microsoft website. They have a schema that defines all the settings of all the visuals. And every month we've made our tool with some proprietary stuff where we're able to easily copy their file down and absorb all the new properties. So I'm pretty sure there is no other theming tool anywhere that I've seen that has all the latest properties. So this is probably the most complete view of all the properties inside any theming file stuff. So yeah, there's not going to be a tool out there that has more than us.
Yes, this is very cool because in the market we have lots of kind of the sim generator can generate JSON sim file. I never seen any tool can go to that kind of visual level to create this kind of the change stuff.
Yeah, and we're doing more than just a theme file, right? So this is building a full Power BI file with images, backgrounds, page sizes, page dimensions, theme files, icons, colors. Like there's a lot of tools out there that do one part of these things, but this tool does everything. It builds the entire wireframe for your entire experience. And then once you're done, you just need to go find, again, like we did before, I go get my semantic models. I go grab my data model that someone else has already built. So I'll go look for star schemas again. I'll grab my star schema. I'll connect to it. And then with that, I'm done my report and I'm off to the races. I'm ready to start building things and just dragging and dropping data to the visuals. And it will start building out all the different visual pieces for me automatically. So much, I think, faster in order to have titles on things. But yeah, pretty fast capabilities here where we can go through and rapidly build out reports using all this visual stylizing. So there you go. That's kind of the fast and quick demo of it. All right, with that, I don't think I have any other items. I know we might be getting close to time here. So Ken, that's about all I've got. Any open for questions? Anything else people want me to demo or show off here or talk through?
Can I just say one thing first, man? I mean, you had me on your show ages ago to talk about monkey tools, and I know at the end of it you were like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And I just want to say, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" Like, it's just fantastic work, Mike. Holy cow! So yeah, there's a question in the chat from Tim. What's the difference between PBIP and PBI.T files?
Oh, great question. So a PBI.T file is a Power BI template file, and a template file is it's the definition of everything with no data in it. The PBIP file is actually designed for GitHub. So if you open up this format, the PBIP format is all of this stuff. When you make a Power BI file, you'll notice that there is a data set, a report, and then a whole bunch of other things inside the PBIX. You can unzip it and look inside it. What Microsoft has done is they're just exposing the innards of the PBIX files. So when you are using this, in this data set side, you can see there's a model.bim and there's a definition.pbi data set. If I have added data to this report, you'll actually load that data directly into the report, and you'll actually see another file for an ABK file, which is the actual data of your Power BI report. So the idea here is this project even has this thing called a git ignore on here. And what it does, it ignores specific files that are local to your machine and this cache ABF, which is the stored compressed data for your data model. So this allows you to immediately take this PBIP format and go send it up to Git, and you can store your entire Power BI report as a Git project. So this is an evolution in the PBIX formatting. And frankly, when Microsoft loads a PBIX to the service, they actually do this internally to their service. They uncompress the Power BI file and they break it into its various components. Eventually, if I go in here to I'll just show you real quick. If I go into the Power BI report and look at the report.json, this JSON describes everything inside the report file. So it's a lot of code, but if I format this, you'll see that we have all our externally linked resources. Here's all our images for our backgrounds. we have our page name, and then we have all the visual containers for every visual that we build inside the report. So this defines to Microsoft how everything stitches together. So with this, we can actually programmatically now build files. So once Microsoft opened up the PBIP format, I enhanced our theme generator to now build not just the theme file, but everything in the Power BI file. And this is cool because now we can expose any property in desktop you want to adjust. We can modify it here. So that's kind of the difference between the PBIP format and the PBIT format. They're quite different and for different purposes. Any other questions?
Yeah, so Ron's got one from a while ago. How do color palettes fit into IBCS? I thought they defined standard colors.
Oh, they do. Yeah, so this is where you can take a little bit of an artistic bent on your reports. So you may want a report that looks more like this just because of an aesthetic, or you can think about your reports in multiple audiences, right? If I'm going to executives, or if I'm, that's a leadership kind of report, I need to look at it and walk away. I don't want to have a lot of interactivity. Probably needs to be a bit more polished in colors. If I'm sending a report to an analyst, I'm not worried as much about the colors, but more about the content and the visuals on the page. So, and then there's an infographic style of reports. You see a lot of those at the Gartner competitions. So whenever Microsoft produces a Gartner report, they're worried about the style. So IBCS really picks blacks, reds, and greens. That's really all they do for color palettes. When you're building Power BI reports, I use them when I need to, but I will actually go out and define my own color palettes. And actually, I like looking at a lot of other example reports. I'll go find, I have a whole, I think I'm weird, Ken. I have literally on my phone like hundreds of photos of things I found on like LinkedIn and Twitter and people posting. I love other images of people that they've been building reports for. So I have a whole library of really good looking reports and color palettes that I like that I use as inspiration. But there's a website that has a really good library of people's really good reports. Oh, here it is. I remember now. If you want to ever be inspired, go to the website called novipro.com. I think it's novipro. Novipro.com. Here it is. This is a website that allows people to build amazing looking Power BI reports, and you can get inspired by looking at their project. And they actually embed their report directly into the website, and you can interact and play with their report. So I use this a lot for getting inspired about what kind of colors do I want to use? How should I want the report to look? Like this is a very black and white, linear report with a very long report page on top of it. They've got other things in here where they have a shoe, and then they use slicers on the page to show you different types of shoes, and they're slicing things out, and they have little buttons on here that you can go buy them. Takes you over to Amazon or whatever. So they've got a really, really great place here on this website where you can just discover other really interesting reports. And there's a ton of really good other Microsoft built dashboards in here for inspiration. So
Ron sent in a follow-up comment that says, so IBCS color palette is most suitable for accountants. And I just want to tell you, as an accountant, I actually take offense to that. Because I'll tell you a funny story from years ago in Excel 2007. They gave us conditional formatting, and they had red arrows pointing down and green arrows pointing up. And I went back and I said, listen, guys, we need something where we can flip the colors on those the other way, because when your expenses are higher, that's actually a bad thing. So we need the red arrows pointing up. And their suggestion was, well, just use gray arrows. And I'm like, I'm an accountant and I'm putting out a report, and people already tell me I'm boring. You take away the one thing that I had that was, yeah. No, so I'll say, look, I mean, I don't know that it was most suitable for accountants. I get that it's thematically good and clean and whatever else, but quite frankly, one of the things that I will say about color is that there is nothing that gets buy-in to your report faster than having it themed in the company colors. Mm-hmm. And the data doesn't even have to be right. You shouldn't be thinking about it that way. But, reality is that I think people do appreciate having more than just black, red, and green on their reports.
And again, I love this website. This is a great place for inspiration. Find something that you like on here that looks good and try to mimic those colors. This is again, a great place to get very creative with color palettes and what people are using. You'll see like a lot of dark themes and light themes and having people pop things back and forth. So there's just a lot of really good projects out here to get inspired. So, yeah, I wouldn't always require you use IBCS colors, but there's a lot of other great examples that are out there you can use as well.
go. We've got another question from Sumant that goes back actually much earlier in your presentation. One thing about the wireframing exercise.
Yes.
It says, I typically do this with the business audience. If we include data stakeholders, we're not able to do a pure art of the possible discussion, and we get lost in a data availability conversation.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
100% true on that one. So for wireframing, again, a lot of what I try and focus on, and particularly in that conversation, is what is an actionable and how can I take these, what keeps you up at night conversations? What are the main data points that you need to run your business? And another good example I heard someone on YouTube recently say was, imagine you got stranded on a desert island and you need to know the health of your business with just a single sheet of paper and 5 bullet points. What are those 5 bullet points? I think a lot of time we overanalyze things and go a little bit too deep in the weeds. Yes, the details need to be there to support those 5 main bullet points. But if we really just distill down is, what is the health of my business? What are the couple main KPIs that tell me, are we doing well? Are we not? And Microsoft actually talks about this inside their blog. Microsoft has on the Power BI adoption roadmap, they talk very candidly about how they used and made KPIs in their organization. So Power BI adoption roadmap, they are, I guess it's called Fabric now. I guess they've updated the words, but Microsoft has their own center of excellence, and they actually went through the same process that they're using here, how they transformed themselves. I think they went through and said, we had over 150 KPIs across the company that were telling them if they were healthy or not, and they needed to distill those numbers down. And this is a great read. So I'd highly recommend this read here if you want to learn about that as well and how to like do some wireframing. And again, focusing on the KPIs and the insights that add direct value. When conversations goes off into a bunny trail about like, well, I can't trust that data. Who made it? Where did it come from? Like, those are great conversations, but not for like the wireframing discussion, right? And those would be more of like, let's figure out the data quality pieces later.
Well, and I think that's a good point, Mike, because I mean, I know that I've sat down and worked, in my own organization with other clients as well. And it's like, you get into that discussion of, well, what do you need? And if you've got somebody there saying, yeah, but we can't get that, that's not helpful. You know, at the end of the day, it's if there's something that's mission critical to running your organization and you don't capture the data for that, what do you need to do to solve that problem?
Yeah.
Capture the freaking data. You've got to figure out a way to make that happen. And if it's impossible to do that, well, then we go back and we say, okay, we can't do that. What can we do instead that's going to get us closer to dealing with? And it needs to be a two-way discussion from both of those things, right? So
I totally agree.
I like to start from that, what is it that we actually need? And then we'll work back and figure out what we have. And then we'll try and figure out how to close the gaps between the two, because that's the process to get it sorted out. So, but it's a great question for sure. There we go. Yeah, I think that's all of the questions that we had outstanding. If there was anything that, and look at that, a beautiful comment that says that the cool tool is on par with Monkey Tools. Love that. Thank you, Ron.
I hope to aspire to be as good as Monkey Tools. That's what I'm trying to do here.
Dude, this is damn impressive. I'm in awe. But I'm sure that you look at your own tool and know all the things that are wrong with it, just like I do with Monkey Tools. And I'm going like,
so many rough edges. I'm like, I can stand that. Oh, this should be better. Yes, it's a progression. It's just nothing will be perfect. I got to get it out the door at some point in time, and hopefully over time we get people using it more and making more features. So the whole reason we want subscribers and to kind of help out there, it provides more funding for the tool. You can, the same thing, the same deal, right? Yep. If you like what you're doing here, my whole goal is to make it faster for you to build reports. That's the whole goal. I want to make it less friction, easier to build templates, easier to build theme files. So I cannot tell you how much angst I have around clicking every visual and stylizing all the properties. I can waste hours doing this. I don't want to do it anymore. So this is kind of the nature of where this was born from, is like, I need a faster way to build stuff so I don't have to spend so much time tweaking and designing. I can just do it once and have it done and then just start from there. And again, there's already a whole bunch of gallery items out there. If you go download them, they're free today. You can go use them right now. You can use them on your reports. There's no data in them. There's nothing proprietary about it. So all the gallery items are available and free for you. And we're continually building more gallery items and building more elements out there.
I'll say, man, I love the visual aspect of being able to go and change the properties on it and see it on sample data. and have that go across the thing. So when you download it, when I create a new chart, it's just going to come out with those things. Because the number of times I've created my bar chart, removed the legend, removed the axis, add the data labels.
And over.
Oh my God.
And I would have saved you hundreds of hours of just not doing that.
Yeah. I see that now. I see that now. All right. So
awesome.
It's already open on my screen on my other monitor, just so you know.
Just to play around with it.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So there you go. Fantastic. All right. Well, like I say, I don't see any other questions that have come in. If there are any that haven't been covered, please, and not having to code them in JSON and Notepad++. Yeah. It's always nice when somebody else does the coding for it, so you don't have to. Yeah, I don't see any other comments that are coming in on this one. Mike, thanks a ton for coming and doing this. This is absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to go and play with this myself. Really looking forward to having you come back in the future and tell us about the updates, because I know you're going to make a ton of these as well. And,
sounds great.
Yeah, thanks so much for doing this. For everybody that's watching here, as I say, we will get the video on this one posted up in the by early next week. I've got something going on tomorrow, so if you're trying to relearn how Mike did all this kind of stuff, that'll be where you can go back and go through a little bit slower.
Sorry, it was very fast.
It's all good. It's all good. I love the feature first kind of thing, and we can always slow it down and watch it back later. So
exactly.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much again, Mike. Thanks everyone for coming. We'll sign off for tonight, and don't forget the next meetups are open for RSVPs. So hopefully we'll see you all at the next one. So till next time, my friend.
Cheers. Thank you.
All right. You bet. Bye-bye now.